Hey everybody, welcome back to Quarantine TV. I'm your host, Coach D. No, I'm playing. It's quarantine school though. All right. So American History DeClassified. Again, it's me, Coach D. Tapping back in with you all. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm your resident nerd for the day. But we're gonna finish up. When I finish up, but we're gonna dive into our topic that I discussed in the first video. We're gonna talk about our original question was, are these major disease outbreaks in the United States actually associated with our politics and election years? All right, so question is yes, is it no? Is it partly true? Is it not true at all? So our goal is we're going to kind of debunk that. We're going to do a little bit of research. We're going to go down the rabbit hole and actually see if those things are connected or not. We never know. But I hope you guys stick around and we can learn more about it. I gave you guys some vocabulary in the very first one. I want to define those things for you today. We talked about some organizations. We're going to define those as well. And then I started to open up a little bit about some of those particular diseases. Again, it goes back from 2004 to current 2020. Those diseases, again, just to give you a little recap, are SARS, the avian bird flu, swine flu, MERS, Ebola, Zika virus. We got Ebola for the second time. And then, of course, the current coronavirus pandemic. All right, so we want to answer some questions, again, just to let you know what those questions are. We talked about what and how was the U.S. healthcare industry impacted. Another question was, what impact did it have on human psychology in the United States? What impacts did these diseases have on the United States, the U.S. political and governmental systems? Then we wanted to talk about how did they affect our political and foreign affairs. And then the last one was, were there any impacts on the U.S. economy? Okay, so our goal is to identify with each and every single disease in all of those particular years. We want to answer those questions. And then again, we want to get a better understanding of how those are actually connected to what we're experiencing right now during this coronavirus crisis. All right, so let's jump into it. So 2004, I was 24 years old. I know it's a long time ago. Man, I'm getting old, gray hairs and everything. But 2004 was a pretty cool year. Let's see, most of you guys were babies, 3, maybe 4 years old, if even younger. Let me give you a little catch up. Let's see. So 2004, most popular hip hop album was the Black Album by Jay-Z. Most popular TV show at the time was One Tree Hill. I thought that was a pretty good show. I don't know if you ever seen it, but it might be on Netflix. Check it out. Most popular album, Justin Timberlake. He had just kind of split off from NSYNC and started doing his own thing. So Justin Timberlake was pretty popular. Britney Spears was also pretty popular. Avril Lavigne was popular. If you listen to alternative music, Avril Lavigne was pretty dope. I liked her. Usher was on top of his game. He's a pretty popular guy. When you think about some of your fashion trends, some of your fitted baseball hats were really popular. I know in the urban culture, big gold chains, Jesus pieces was a big deal. At the time, well, it's always popular, but I think it was a lot more popular then. Gold is always heavily traded, but at that time, platinum was at an all-time high. People were buying platinum at an alarming rate. Gold was still pretty heavy in the market, but platinum was very, very sought after as a precious metal. Let's see some of the other things that were happening in 2004. Oh, George Bush was the president. All right. Again, we're not talking about Daddy Bush. We're talking about Baby Bush. All right. So George Bush was the president. He actually got in office in 2001. So now in 2004, George Bush has had a few little experiences. Yeah. And he's getting ready to embark on what's probably I would say probably one of the most interesting times in at least my generation. We had quite a few things that happened from the beginning of his administration to the end. I think early on you had things like 9/11, but again in 2004 we had the SARS virus. So the SARS virus popped off, and again, this wasn't something that created as much of a concern in society as this particular coronavirus situation is, but it was definitely an area that people were keeping their eyes on. Okay, so I talked about some vocabulary words that I gave to you guys in the beginning, and I want to define some of those for you, so then that way you have a better understanding of how they're going to be used in the context, and then you can kind of apply them to, you know, gain a better understanding of the information it's all. And again, I'm going to be attaching some resources, some articles for you guys to read, some pretty cool videos on YouTube for you to read. And again, all of these are subjective. All right, nothing is the absolute truth. Nothing is, I mean, I can only tell you what I know, and I don't know everything. So a lot of this information is, you know, information for you to get a general understanding about it, and hopefully, if you're interested, you continue to go down the rabbit hole and learn more about it, and start building your own connections to it. Okay, so when we look at the vocabulary words, the first word is discovery. All right, I think discovery is pretty self-explanatory. You guys are high school students. I don't think I didn't define the word discovery, but you know what that is. One that you may not be too familiar with, but I want to make sure that you are familiar with it. And this is a science word, but it's a word that you should know, especially during this particular time. It's etymology. All right, etymology is ETYMOLOGY, etymology. All right, etymology. So etymology is the study of the origins, of words and where they get their meanings from. All right, so you're probably asking yourself, okay, what is SARS? Like, where did that word come from? What does it mean? You know, when do people start using it? So what I want to do is give you an understanding of it. SARS is actually an acronym. All right, so SARS is the Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome. All right, SARS. All right, Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome. All right, that's what SARS actually means. So when you hear people refer to it like, oh, SARS virus. Actually, it used to be a SARS market in Seattle, but the SARS virus, it's a Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome. Okay, and that was an epidemic. That wasn't a pandemic. That was an epidemic. Actually, maybe I should add a Z word. So write down epidemic in your vocabulary list, and then also write down pandemic so you know the difference. And just for your understanding, I could define those for you, so that way you don't get mixed up in that. Hold on. All right, so just for your understanding, an epidemic. So epidemic is a widespread occurrence of infection disease in a community at a particular time. All right, figured I'd give you the definition because we're talking about it right now. So again, an epidemic is a widespread occurrence of an infectious disease in a community at a particular time. All right, that's an epidemic. But you're probably asking, okay, what's the difference between an epidemic and a pandemic? And I'll tell you. All right, so a pandemic is actually, it's a portion of a disease. So it's prevalent over a whole country or the world. All right, so remember, an epidemic is spreading over a particular time. It's a widespread infectious disease that it's in a community at a particular time, to where a pandemic is actually, it's prevalent over a whole country or the entire world. All right, so look at the root word pan. Pan means all. All right, so epi could be center. All right, so you got an epidemic that's focusing on a community at a particular time, and a pandemic is focusing on a whole country or the whole world. All right, so that's the difference between an epidemic and a pandemic. All right, so far we got discovery, etymology, epidemic, and pandemic. All right, the next one we're gonna go is morphology. All right, when you think, well, I know when I do, when I think of morphology, I think of power, you know, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. All right, to morph, like if you think scientifically, a butterfly, a metamorphosis. You think of a caterpillar metamorphosizing into a butterfly. All right, so morphology is the study of forms and things. Things, you know, when they change, not necessarily evolution, but when they change from one state to another. All right, that's morphology. Okay. The next one is genome. Genome. All right, so a genome is, this is a sciencey word, And so it's a haploid set of chromosomes in a gamete or a microorganism, or in each cell of a multicellular organism. All right, I know that's a mouthful, so let me say it again. A genome is the haploid set of chromosomes in a gamete or a microorganism, or in each cell of a multicellular organism. All right, I know that's super sciencey. You're like, oh my God, Coach D, that's not even history. But again, good to know. Good to know. All right. So next one we're going to go through, again, pretty self-explanatory, but it's worth defining. So let's look at life cycle. Okay. And then life cycle is a series of changes in the life of an organism, including reproduction. All right, which is really, really important with this particular topic, because when we're talking about SARS or any kind of diseases for that matter, understanding how these diseases change, and then also understanding how they can be reproduced. All right, because a lot of times we'll hear about an infectious disease and it'll be really, really important and it'll go away. And then we'll be like, oh, okay, it must be cured. But then it comes back and it's like, wait, how did it come back if it was cured? All right, so when you're looking at the way it changes, or the morphology, all right, that's the life cycle, all right, especially when it includes reproduction. All right, so that's good to know. The next word is taxonomy, all right, taxonomy. All right, and taxonomy is a branch of science concerned with classification, especially of organisms and systematics. All right, so taxonomy is important because when we're talking about diseases, we have to be able to classify them. All right, so I don't know if you know, but all of these diseases are strains of the flu. All right, each and every one of them, all different strains of the flu, coronavirus, and we'll talk about it. I don't want to talk about it now because I want to save that as like the grand finale. But coronavirus is also a strain of the flu. All of these are. So SARS is also a flu strain as well. So just want to make sure you guys knew that. All right, and then our next one, again, pretty self-explanatory, but I figured why not, let's go through it. So evolution, all right? So evolution is a process by which different kinds of living organisms are thought to have developed and diversified from earlier forms during the history of the earth, all right? So again, evolution. So we all know evolution, we understand the term. Things evolve. Well, it's the same thing with diseases. Diseases evolve, all right? They have the way that they start, and things change, morphology, and then they evolve into a stronger, more lethal, more concerning disease. All right, so we need to understand that. Okay, and last but not least is epidemiology. All right, I like that word. I don't know if you guys used to know. I don't know if I even told you guys. I used to work in surgery. So I worked in surgery for 8 years. Crazy, right? How to become a teacher. Long story. Went to college for one thing, left, went against it, decided to go into healthcare. All right, but I was in surgery for 8 years, and epidemiology was a word that I heard every single day. All right, every single day I heard the word epidemiology, and it was so interesting to me because it's the branch of medicine which deals with the incidence, distribution, and possible control of diseases and other factors related to health. All right, and it's important to know those things, especially when you're talking about surgery or when you're in a healthcare situation in a hospital. All right, I worked in a hospital, worked in probably almost every hospital here in Western Washington. Dang, I worked at a lot of hospitals now I'm thinking about it. But good time in my life, transition, got into the classroom, hanging out with you guys, so I'm good. All right, but epidemiology, again, is the branch of medicine which deals with the incidence, distribution, and possible control of diseases and other factors relating to health. All right, so again, we need to understand these vocabulary words in order to keep along with the lesson, because I don't want to throw them out. You're like, oh my God, what is Coach D talking about? Those are the words, those are the definitions. So hopefully you wrote them down, because the more you write them down, the more you read them, the more fluent you'll get in them, okay? All right, so again, we're talking about 2004, we're talking about the SARS virus. And again, as we're learning more about 2004, we just got to get caught up. This is the history part of it. All right, so again, I talked about to you that George Bush was the president at the time. And again, another thing that made 2004 very, very interesting because economically the country was going through some changes, because what you may not remember but I'm sure your family members and your parents will. In 2003, we were fighting a war in Iraq. Actually, we were fighting that war from 2001 all the way to 2005. Okay, so the war in Iraq was a very tumultuous time for the country at the time. Actually, when I told you George Bush went into office in 2001, that September is when we had 9/11. So you can imagine it was a pretty tense time, foreign and domestically, because we were trying to get down to the purpose behind it, what was really going on, the understanding America's role in that as well. So 2001 was a very tough year. 2002, again, we're knee deep in the war with Iraq. We were fighting the Taliban, whole bunch of stuff going on. So just understanding that those things had an impact on how we operated domestically, and it also had an impact on the way that we operated with our foreign affairs. All right, so that's kind of the first part of what's happening in 2004. All right, but I don't want to give it all to you at one time. So we'll come back to you in part 3, and we're going to talk more about the SARS virus. We're going to break down the disease. We'll see if we can answer some of these questions for you guys. And then hopefully, if you have the opportunity, you've been able to read some of the reference material I've been able to share with you guys in an effort to maybe get a little bit ahead and enjoy a little bit more of the conversation. And I'm gonna see if I can do some videos on there for you too, just some YouTubes that I can link you guys to so you can get a better understanding as well. All right, so for now, we're gonna park it right there, and I will see you guys on part 3. Take it easy.